Well, welcome everybody. My name is David and I get to be your moderator and presenter on this wonderful program we've got for you today. The next 30 minutes are going to be action-packed, so if you're multitasking, please shut down other applications and get laser focused as we present you this exciting presentation on marketing to your competitors' lease expirations. We've got an expert on the line. Jeff Bush is with us and he's going to give us the expert presentation on these specific tactics that he's using right now to market to competitors' lease expirations with some of the top nation's top dealers, and they're from all around the country. You're going to get a chance to see some of the case studies. You're going to get a chance to see the specific mailers, so you do not want to miss 1 minute of this 30-minute presentation. If you want to submit a question to the presenter, Jeff Bush, please use the control panel there. Over there on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a place where you can ask questions. At the end of Jeff's presentation, we're going to take those questions, and I'll be asking those questions in the order in which they're received. And Jeff will go into more specifics on exactly how to take this information he's going to share with you and apply it to your particular market. So Jeff is the president of overflowworks.com. He's got over 20 years of automotive direct mail experience. He's mailed over, get this, 1 billion direct mail pieces mailed for automotive and mortgage industries. His email address is right there, so if you get in a hurry or you have to bail early on the webinar, just shoot him an email at jeffbush@overflowworks.com, and he'll be sure to get back to you with specific information of how you can leverage this content. Jeff, welcome to the presentation today.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Appreciate it.
Well, let's jump into this and talk a little bit more about who Overflow Works is and a little bit about your background, Jeff, and why you think that it's important to bring this information to these dealers all around the country.
Well, my first sales job was selling direct mail to car dealers when I was 18 years old, believe it or not. It's one of my 42, almost 43 years old next month. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've done every kind of direct mail piece imaginable for car dealers, whether it be service coupon mailers, bankruptcy mailers, database buyback mailers, new car mail. I mean, I've done everything imaginable, keys and tubes and insurance and scratch off. And so I've been around this for a long time. And what I found over the years of doing this is to try to sell new cars from direct mail is tough. There's really only one list of prospects we can mail to have any success selling new cars with direct mail. It's just too competitive out there. Too much customer information, the internet, Kelley Blue Book, autotrader.com. So we're going to present, the one direct mail campaign that we have that's been successful consistently for selling new cars. Our company does a lot of subprime mailers still for dealers around the country, and we can talk a little bit about that on the used car side. But this presentation is mainly about, how do we sell an extra 10 or 20 new cars a month, 100, 200 new cars for the year, that we're not going to sell without Jeff Bush and Overflow's lease expiration marketing program. You're mailing your database, you're advertising everywhere to try to sell new cars, and this is a way where you can get a hold of your competitors' lease expirations and get some business that we know you would not get without this direct mail, email, and phone call marketing program. So that's it. Just been doing this for a while. 3 or 4 different companies over 20 years. We've sold a company to ADP back in the 90s that did service mailers, and then a couple other big companies that sold. So this one's only been around for a few years, but been involved for a long time. So,
well, Jeff, we've got general managers, BDC directors, and all of them just want to sell more new cars. So I'm going to do a quick poll here. If you haven't voted on the poll over there in your screen, come back to your screen, cast your vote, and I'm going to share those anonymous results with Jeff so he can kind of get an idea of who's on the line with us. But Jeff, we're going to get to talking about lease expiration data and just where you're grabbing your valuable data from and how you're targeting these high qualified buyers. So hold on just 1 second and I'll share the poll results. If you haven't voted yet, I'll give you 5 seconds to cast your vote, and then we'll go ahead and share these results. Thanks everybody for participating. Okay, Jeff, well, we got a good group of individuals, and so you can see that we got 15% of our audience is selling over 100 or under 100 cars per month, and so we've got some individuals that are selling quite a few more than that. So let's tailor your presentation to those individuals that are in majority and try to give some insights to those that are in the minority.
Great.
All right, well, let's talk about lease expiration data.
Yeah, so lease expiration data is kind of not that easily available out there. We have to get it from the credit bureau. So what we do is we go into the credit report, we look at, you know, the fact that they opened the lease, we look at when they opened the lease, we look at the term, the lease expiration date, we look at the credit score, we look at their lease payment amount, and then sometimes we can cross some vehicle information with that. That's a little tougher to do. We got to buy two lists and merge them together to get specifically, you know, Toyota leases or Mercedes leases. So we do a little bit of both. But this data originates from the credit bureau. So if you're familiar with credit data, you have to make a firm offer of credit. We have a bank that does a pre-qualified offer form so that they're pre-approved based on their credit score. They still have to qualify for income and trade equity, you know, length of employment, all the other reasons that they might not be able to get a car, but they're pre-approved based on their credit score. So we typically pull out credit scores over 640, lease expiration dates in the next 1 to 6 months. We've been mailing 1 to 12 months out on the leases, getting twice the response rate because their originating dealer that leasing their vehicle doesn't really start talking to them until 6 months before the lease expires. So if we mail months 7 through 12, we get twice as much response out of that data. They're a little tougher deals to make if they've got 12 payments left of $300 a month. You got to find a way to bury $3,600 in the new car, but if you can get a little bit of money out of them, we find dealers that are aggressive are pretty successful getting people out of a lease, you know, 12 months early. But so we can market the actual lease expiration month. You know, lease payment amount is a pretty big deal. I mean, if you're a Mercedes store, I noticed we had a big Mercedes store on this call, some Lexus stores. You know, you might only want to market to people that are paying $400 a month or more on their lease payment. So we know absolutely they can afford a Mercedes or a Lexus. Now, there's another school of thought that says, hey, they might be paying $300 a month on a lease for a Honda, but you might be able to upgrade that customer to, you know, an E-Class, a C-Class Mercedes and bump them, you know, $100, $200 a month on lease payment. So I encourage dealers to mail all the leases expiring. But if you are a luxury store and you want to take the Kia leases for $99 a month off the list, we can certainly do that. Or if you're a Kia dealer and you don't want to market to Mercedes, BMW owners, we can take the payments down and don't mail to anybody paying over, you know, $600 a month, for example. But you never know what kind of car these people are looking for. You don't know if they got a pay raise or if they got laid off. They could be downsizing. They could be on their way back up. The one thing we know, you know, Orange County, California has a population of 3 million people, and I only have like 18,000 leases expiring in the next 6 months in all of Orange County. So we have a very targeted list here of 18,000 people to mail in Orange County, only 3 million, I mean, in the total population. So I encourage my dealers, don't try to take this list and cut it down even smaller by going only 1 month out on the lease or only these payments. These people are in the market for a new car. They have to do something in the next few months. So it's a great list of people to mail to for response and email and call. So that's obviously we're going to pull zip codes around your market area, and we can show you the data. We pull from all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TU, because each one of them sometimes reports a little differently, so we cross-reference all 3 bureaus to get the most data and the most accuracy on it. So that's a little bit about the data. As you know, direct mail success is all about the data. I mean, 60% of the reason why it fails or succeeds is based on the database you're mailing to. 20% is based on the offer, so that's important. You know, the actual mail piece you send out, whether you do a postcard, a red envelope, a white envelope, it's not that big of a deal. It's all about the list and the offer. So we try to create, we have a strong list, and we try to help you create a strong offer to get some response on these mailers.
Well, Jeff, let's jump in and talk about some of these case studies. And if you want to just give us kind of an overview. Now, you've pulled together 8 to 10 different case studies from dealers that you've actually worked with over the last 12 months that have invested in your business, invested in your marketing, and have done it consistently. And so if you want to give any disclaimers about these particular campaigns now, that'd be great. And then just jump in and talk a little bit more about what you did for Jackie Cooper Imports and Nissan.
Yeah, so Jackie Cooper, pretty much a luxury dealer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We did this mailer around Christmas time. We put a QR code on it. That was kind of nice. They could scan the QR code, go to the dealer's website. We did some variable printing, you know, Happy Holidays, Jeff. So we put their name in real big. This is a huge mega card. It's actually 9 by 12 printed on thick coated stock, so it gets a lot of attention in the mailbox. here's an example of a dealer that's got multi-franchises, mostly luxury brands. You got Mercedes, Infiniti, Porsche. I think they have a Maserati store too that they didn't include in this. But again, just mailing all the leases that are expiring. We don't know what kind of car they're looking to buy. I mean, granted, if they lease a Toyota, I think there's a 50% chance they're going to come back and lease another Toyota from that dealer. But what happens to the other 50%? You just never know what kind of car they're interested in. So I liked this mailer just putting a bunch of different brands on it with some attractive lease payments with 0 down, attractive rates. So we've got some strong offers here, you know, $30 off a detail, not huge, but, you know, the lease payments. So this mailer, so there's like 5,000 people coming off lease in Tulsa, Oklahoma market. So we mail the 5,000, and we get anywhere from about a 0.3 to a 1% response. So worst response I've ever seen, 15, you know, calls or people coming in on 5,000. You know, the best one's about 50 people calling or coming in on 5,000 mailers. And this one was, I think, right in the middle. I think they got a little over 0.5% response. And, you know, 5,000 piece mailer, they might sell 10 cars. I've had dealers sell 20 and I've had dealers sell 5. Just some realistic averages, you know, maybe 10 extra new cars sold on 5,000 mailers, you know, 20 on 10,000 mailers. So there's a good sample mailer that was kind of luxury, nice, tying into the holiday event that I think the dealer and Mercedes-Benz were doing at the time.
Jeff, here's a good question from Corey in Lawrence, Kansas. He's got a question in regards to traditional marketing of direct mail versus the idea of using digital marketing, just with all the rage there. Would you like to address that now?
Well, obviously, digital marketing for dealers has become huge. I mean, internet leads, websites, you know, CRM, all the things you're doing. I mean, that's just absolutely necessary these days. And a lot of people look at direct mail kind of old school, like, yeah, we don't do any mail, we do everything internet. And I get that. But the funny thing is, the internet's gotten so convoluted. There's so much competition out there with 50 banners popping up on different websites that, you know, direct mail can still be successful. It's just not probably a huge part of your budget. But if we can, you know, have you spend a few $1,000s and sell an extra 10 or 20 cars a month, as long as you're getting an ROI on it. And this particular program, you know, if you're in Kansas, I might have 3,000 leases in a 30-mile radius around your store. So it's a small mailing. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. You want to get into the mailboxes of everybody that's ready to lease a new car in the next 1 to 6 months, because it's such a targeted list. I believe it's worth mailing every month. And as long as you get an ROI on it, it should be part of your mix. We're going to go into how I get email addresses and phone numbers on these people and send them email campaigns where they can click on links back to your website. They can get a lease quote. There's some other things tying in some electronic media into the direct mail that helps these campaigns, and we're going to get into that at the end, but definitely a mix is important, I think.
Great. Well, talk about what you did for this Audi particular campaign.
So this is an interesting mailer. You're going to notice there's no name on it, and we did that on purpose. So what was happening with Audi stores around the country is these Q7 vehicles were coming off lease, and they had like $10,000 in equity in them. Audi had understated the residual value on these cars. So what I did for a bunch of Audi stores is I just mailed Q7 Audi owners and said, we want to buy your vehicle out of the lease. And these guys were buying these cars like $10,000 back of what they were worth. So this mailer went out to Audi leases expiring, really more about buying cars for their used car inventory because they could make so much money on them. It wasn't really designed as a new car mailer, so to speak. Of course, when they brought their car in, they tried to lease them a new Audi. But this was kind of an interesting mailer. We left it kind of vague to where, you know, we mailed, you know, all of Southern California. This is Audi of Mission Viejo, a pretty good-sized Audi store in SoCal. And, you know, the mailer had an offer for a $500 gift certificate for Nordstrom's. Actually, if they were driving a Q7, we offered them $500. If they were driving an A4, we offered them a $200 Nordstrom's gift card. So we had a variable data field in the mailing based on what kind of car they were driving and what their lease payment was. So very successful mailer. Bought a lot of nice quality Audi lease returns off the mailer, and then sold some new cars off it. So that was a successful mailer. And that was just a postcard, pretty simple, pretty cheap. I think the BDC manager took all the phone calls on that particular mailer. It had one guy at the dealership's name and his cell number on the mailer because these leads were so valuable. They're making $10 grand a car just buying cars. forget if they sold them a new one. It was a very profitable campaign, so pretty exciting.
Great. I'm going to throw up another poll here. If you haven't answered that poll, go ahead and cast your vote, but just kind of curious a little bit more about what percentage of your new car sales are leases. So go ahead and cast your vote, and I'll share those poll responses here shortly, Jeff. But we're going to get into talking about what you did for Bill Brown Ford. And so if you want to give any other details about some of the reasons of why these dealers are coming to this particular program, I think it'd be valuable for the attendees.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 1 million people in your market, and we only have 5,000 people that are coming off lease that have to buy a car in the next 1 to 6 months, why wouldn't you want to be in front of those people? At least mailing them a letter saying, hey, we know you're in the market for a new car. Have you thought about Nissan? Here's some Nissan leases. Just getting in front of these people. And if you're a Nissan store, there might be 5 other Nissan stores in the market area, and you're going to get a hold of their lease expirations because they're going to be on this list. So you're going to be able to mail specifically some of your competitors' lease expirations, take some nice trade-ins, rob some market share, go get some more, market share. So, and just so you know, Dave, every dealer on this phone call, I guarantee, has their own lease portfolio. If you lease 100 cars a month, 36 months ago, you got 100 customers coming off lease. And guess what? You direct mail them, you email them, and you call them. You beat that list to death to try to keep your lease retention to where if you leased 100 cars 3 years ago, your goal is to get over 50 of them back in to buy a car. So you're already doing exactly what I'm doing. You're just doing it in real small scale to your own database. And it's going to work better to your database. Those customers like you. They know who you are. You're going to go try to steal business from somebody else, which is harder, which is why when we do 10,000 mailers, we don't get 5,000 phone calls. We get 100 phone calls, a 1% response, because this list is you're trying to steal business and add market share. So you're already doing what I'm presenting. We're just doing it to your competitors' leases expiring. So,
hey, Jeff, Julie is a BDM out in Plymouth, and she's got Plymouth, Michigan, that is, and she's got a question in regards to email marketing. We're going to address that here later, but do you want to just make a mention of how you utilize email, or should we wait until later in the presentation?
Just a quick note on it. If I mail 10,000 people a letter in the mail, and I have all that data from the credit bureau, good FICO scores, they're coming off lease, it's great data, I can send that list out and have emails appended, and I pick up about 5,000 emails. About 50% of the list I get an email on. Then what I do is I send out an email to all those people from me, giving those people the opportunity to opt out of the list. If they're email haters and they don't want to get email, or if they moved and the email address is undeliverable. So I send out 5,000 emails, and typically out of 5,000, I'll have about 1,500 people bounced emails, bad email addresses, or take me off your list. So then I end up with 3,500. 35% of 10,000 are good, solid email addresses. I send an email for you because I have a really good way of getting mass emails delivered that most dealers don't have internally. Some of your CRM systems won't even allow you to upload emails from an outside system, so you can't do it yourself. So I send an email for you, then I give you all the data, and your sales team can pick off these 3,500 emails and start emailing people one at a time and getting a whole bunch of car sales over the next few months just by email marketing. And I'm going to show you a sample email that I send and show you a copy of the data. It's one of the slides that's just after these letters. So we'll get into a little bit more of that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, Jeff, I know we're short on time right now, but can you address John's question? He's asking about after you send the mail piece, do you provide them with the data so that they can try and call to back up the mailer, or how is the data protected in terms of exclusivity or anything else?
Well, we only sell this whole campaign to one Ford dealer. In fact, I just did a very successful Ford lease mailer in New Jersey, and the Ford dealer down the street got a copy of our letter because he's leasing a Ford. He called me to order this whole program, and I just had to tell him no because I already have a Ford dealer in that same 20-mile radius in New Jersey. So we do give exclusivity. We have to walk away from some business. I don't mind putting a Mercedes store and a Ford store in the same market because I think it's a different buyer. So we might have two dealers in your market, one luxury and one normal brand. But yes, you get the email addresses, you get the mailing addresses, we send you the phone numbers. Because this is credit data, it's a little bit sensitive, so you can't just go mass mailing this data. You've got to have the right disclaimers on the mailer, which we can go through. It's legal. It's compliant. I mean, Lease Automotive Group, 170 dealerships just signed off on my letter, their attorneys, so it's fully legal. But mailing credit data is more sensitive. You got to be careful on what you mail, but I will give them the data, phone numbers, emails.
Well, Jeff, you knocked it out of the park with Herb Chambers, BMW of Boston. I'm going to show that letter now, and we're moving through this fairly quickly, but can you address this letter?
Yeah. So Herb Chambers Automotive Group, they own 37 dealerships in Boston, and they weren't sure which dealership to do this as, so we just went ahead and put all the logos on the letter. You want to lease a new Lambo, Bentley, Rolls Royce, Land Rover. I mean, this mailer was done out of the BMW store, so it was really designed to sell new BMWs, but we wanted to offer these people, hey, no matter what kind of car you're looking for, we'll help you find that car, because they mailed like 17,000 leases that were expiring in the Boston market, and just going after all their competitors' lease expirations, and they'll sell them any car inside their franchise, their dealer group, so to speak. So big successful dealer, obviously very aggressive, sells a lot of cars, had a lot of success on this mailer. I think we did 17,000 mailers, and we had like over 100 inbound phone calls, a lot of people walking in. The email results, we haven't heard back on how the email did, but these guys might end up selling 30 or 40 cars off a $10,000 mailer, mailer, email, phone call campaign. So that was a successful letter.
Great.
I want to mention some before you switch. BMW came out with the Happier New Year event. Everybody saw it on TV. My God, they were running those TV spots, BMW Factory, during the NBA games, the football games, the playoffs. I mean, they were pounding it on the TV. So anytime the factory's doing something that we can kind of sneak in and add the direct mail campaign to it, they had $2,000, I think it was a rebate if you came and purchased or leased a new BMW. So they were using that $2,000 to pay these people's final 5 lease payments. If they were leasing a Mercedes and they had 5 payments left of $400, they were using the $2,000 to make all their lease payments. So it was a strong offer from the factory. With, and if you have some conquest lease money that the factory comes out with, we love to incorporate that, because again, that strengthens the offer on these mailers. It makes them work better. Instead of getting 50 calls on 10,000 letters, we might get 100 if we've got $2,000 in conquest cash coming from the factory. And the factories are always rolling out their early bird lease conquest money. So if that comes out, that's a great time to do this mailer, because you can offer the customer something stronger. So,
talk about Honda, Jeff, and we're going to get into some. For those of you that want to stick around, we promised you this is going to be a 30-minute presentation, but we did throw in some bonus marketing material for used car sales. So if you want to stick around after the first 30 minutes, feel free. We're going to go through some of that used car information and answer some questions. But Jeff, doing a great job so far. Let's address this Honda campaign.
So Honda of Ames, Iowa, out by Des Moines, I mean, pretty small town. I mean, we only came up with a couple thousand leases expiring in a 50-mile radius around the store. And, leasing is not as big in the Midwest as it is on the West Coast and the East Coast. So our response rate, I think we mailed a couple thousand pieces, and I think they got 12 people that came in and sold 5 cars. A couple Nissans and a few Hondas. So here's an example of just putting both stores on the mailer. We don't know if they want a Honda or they want a Nissan, so let's advertise 2 of each car at the bottom. The offer up top's pretty strong, 0 down, 0 security, 0 first month's payment. The other thing we offered on this mailer, and if you look at the kind of the top right corner, it says F name, which would be first name. So Jeff, even if you're not ready to buy a new car, we'd like to buy you out of your lease early. So even if these people aren't wanting to come lease a new Nissan, if they have a vehicle coming off lease, we'd like them to bring it in so we can try to buy them out of their lease. You can pick up some amazing trade-ins below market value, below what you'd have to pay at the auction, by just mailing a letter to these people saying, hey, we want to buy your car out of its lease, and you can get some great trade-ins, way back a book, and make great money on them. They're typically low mileage, great condition because they're lease returns. And so we add that little message to try to promote people coming in with their lease vehicle we might want to buy, even if they're not ready to buy a car from us.
Great. We're going to go on to the next one here, Jeff, which is the Lexus of Valencia campaign.
So every year in December, I've got 20 Lexus stores that call me and go, hey, December to remember, they've got, Conquest Cash out there. For a lease return, I think it was $1,000 on this particular mailer. So, we show 3 Lexus vehicles with some really aggressive lease payments, 0.9% financing, so some good offers, $1,000 in Conquest cash. So we'll make your final 3 lease payments, of $1,000 or something of that nature. This letter was printed front and back, QR code on the back, with the whole December to Remember sales event. So, obviously at the end of the year, Lexus dealers push pretty hard. So I've got, I think this year I did like 10 or 12 Lexus deals in November, December. That just, it makes sense. We've got $1,000. If you're driving a BMW or Mercedes, come, lease a new Lexus, and we'll give you $1,000, towards credit. So next mailer up here, early lease buyout program. The Passport Automotive Group in Maryland's been a great client for me for a couple years. They've got 5 or 6 dealerships. So on this particular mailer, we show BMW, Mini, and Toyota. Again, we're just mailing anybody that has a lease expiring. We know they've got to buy a new car. Maybe we can talk them into a Mini, a Toyota, a BMW, but let's just put all 3 stores on there and let them call which store they want based on the car they might want. We put a little coupon, $500 towards your final lease payments, an early lease buyout program. This dealer, probably spent $50,000 with me over the last couple years, and does a mailer every quarter. The one nice thing about the lease expiration date, I'll mention this. Let's say that you're mailing all the leases expiring 1 to 12 months. Well, once we buy all the data and we get all the emails and the phone numbers, we've got that data in-house. So 1 month goes by, we take the people that had 1 month left on their lease and take them off the list because they already traded into something new. But then month 13 now becomes month 12, so a lot of dealers are committing to mailing with us 12 months in a row. Once we have all the data, the cost of the mailing goes down, and every month there's a new month that we add to the list. So, we mail them at 12 months, 6 months, 3 months. I mean, some dealers are mailing every month. This particular dealer mails every quarter. So just another example of a mailer. One of the strong offers on his mailer, you may not be charged any early termination fees. You may be able to avoid over mileage charges or excess wear and tear charges. That's all things that consumers are worried about when they're getting out of their lease early. We've had people come in, 12 months early on their lease and only have like 18,000 miles on the car. So even though they have 12 payments left, they've got $2,000 to $3,000 in equity in the vehicle, which is amazing. So you never know what you're going to get on these things. It's it's kind of interesting.
Well, you got a nice lease payment waiver voucher here. Talk a little bit more about what you did for Mini of Montgomery County.
Okay, so this one's a little tricky, and I like this mailer. We actually take their lease payment. Let's say that they're paying $300 a month on their lease. We figure out they got a $300 lease payment. They got 3 months left. So we take 3 months times $300. Oh, here's a better example. Our records indicate you have 6 payments left of $406 left on your auto lease. So we take 6 times 406, and it's like $2,400 worth of lease payments they have left, and we make that variable inside the check. On this particular dealer, they said, hey, we only want to offer 3 months of free lease payments. So we make the check out for $1,218, which is exactly the 3 payments they have left on their lease, or 3 months of the remaining payments. So this is a great letter that's real specific. We've got their lease payment. We're using variable data in the voucher, and it really makes the offer special to them, which makes the mailer work better. And then Mini's pretty hot. They've got some attractive vehicles for $199, $209, $245 a month leases. And a lot of people are getting out of, who knows, BMWs and going to lease a Mini for better gas mileage. So again, mailing all the leases expiring with some strong offers and specifically about their lease.
Jeff, just for the sake of time here, let's talk about what you're doing with the emails, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the timelines and get on with the used car marketing.
So this is a sample email that goes out. We use the subject line, your auto lease expiration. I mean, we figure if they've got a lease expiring in the next few months, when we use that subject line, we get a huge open rate on this email. That's crucial. Subject line is really important, obviously, in email marketing. So we send the email out. It comes from you, your email address. We set it all up, launch the email. So if they reply to the email, it comes back to you as a lead. Hey, I'm interested in getting on my lease early. Can you call me? So dealers get a lot of replies. Dealers get some phone calls off these emails. So you can see, it appears your lease is coming due soon. Give you $500 off. Call me, and this is the VP of Sales for Passport Auto Group. All the email leads actually go to him, and then he forwards them out to the different stores, different new car sales managers or BDC. So a lot of different options in this of things we can do on where the email responses go to, and that's kind of crucial to make sure someone's going to follow up with these people quickly. They're pretty hot, to buy.
Well, Jeff, a couple more questions that are coming in, but I'm going to show a quick poll here and ask those people that need to leave right away. If you'd like to receive more information from Overflow Works and Jeff, please go ahead and cast your vote, and they'll send you some more information based on your preferences. And then we'll continue on with this new car marketing for the next few minutes, and then we'll transition to used car marketing in just a moment. So cast your vote as soon as possible. And Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit more about the lease data? And I'll bring up that screen here as soon as the poll is finalized.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little long-winded today. I'm taking a little bit more time trying to talk fast, but I'll try to get through.
Well, we had some great questions from the participants, and one of the questions that just came in that I want you to address at some point here in the presentation is about marketing compliance with the dealers themselves and their brands. How do you handle that with your marketing pieces?
Well, we know certain states are stricter than others. I mean, California, we can't do certain things. I got a lot of California dealers. Chicago's a tough market. New York, they hate car dealers. I mean, it's just we got attorney generals. So we've got mail pieces that have been approved by some pretty big legal staffs of big car dealer groups that we can start with. But you might want to run it by your internal staff just to make sure you don't have some weird state law. One of my Chicago dealers just said, I can't advertise the sales tax inside the lease without some special law in Chicago or Illinois. So I think our mailers are compliant, but you still want to run them by somebody to make sure you're not getting in trouble. You get mail pieces at your house from all the credit card companies, and those credit card companies are looking at your credit score, they're looking at your credit card balances, and they're mailing you offers to transfer your balance from here to there. They're mailing credit data, so it's legal. I mean, Capital One mailed 120 million credit mailers last year. So it's totally legal, but you have to have the right offers and the right disclaimers, and you might want to just check the car dealer laws in your state. I just found out in one state we can't put the lease disclaimers on the back of the letter. It has to be prominent with right next to the lease payment. So different weird state laws that you'd have to help me out with to get this thing right,
There's some questions coming in about manufacturer compliance, and we'll have those individuals address those to you directly because we do have some more information to present. But talk to us a little bit more about this this data analytics that you're providing, Jeff.
So this is just the report that you get after we launch the email. That shows how many we sent, how many opens you got. And this particular dealer, they had a 12% open rate on the email to a dead cold list that didn't buy a car from them. That's pretty good. I think the average email open rate is probably 5%. So at 12%, we're doing pretty good. You can see 18 people said, hey, don't email anymore. They opted out of your list, and we take that serious and make sure to manage the data. So if they opt out, we don't ever email them again. We have 35 bounced emails out of 3,000, which is phenomenal. And the reason for that is because I clean the data and I send one email before yours goes out, giving them the opportunity to opt out and cleaning up the list so that you have better deliverability. So, 3,000 emails, 365 people opened it. We get about 30 leads on these email campaigns, and I don't want to talk you out of doing direct mail, but some of my dealers have told me they're getting more response on the email campaign than the mailer, which is frightening for a printing guy. But in order to get all the emails, we've got to buy 10,000 names to get 3,500 email addresses. If you just wanted to do email, it would be expensive, and you wouldn't have that much data, and you'd miss 65% of the people in the market that have a lease come and due. So I still think it's worth mailing them, but definitely the email. We might email once a month for the next 6 months until their lease expires, to make this happen. So anyways.
Jeff, talk about cost, and then we'll get into timeline and be done with this particular portion of the presentation.
So we do some direct mail for 60 cents a piece, just like everybody else. You want to do a buyback mailer, you want to do a bankruptcy mailer. I mean, we have dealers doing 10, 20, 30,000 mailers at 60 cents. This particular mailer is 89 cents. We typically do them first-class postage because these offers from the manufacturers typically expire at the end of the month. And if we're going to show lease payments, we've got to time it with the factory offers. So, first-class postage, it's around, I think, around 39 cents now. So a big portion of this is postage. We do a color, legal size letter, laser personalized in color, really nice paper. So targeted list from the credit bureau. It's expensive data. It comes from the bureau. We clean it up and create all these custom fields in the data, and then design the mailer, print it, mail it. So the whole direct mail campaign is 89 cents. And then to do the email append and the phone append and send the email, design the email, $1,500 for the email, $400 for phone numbers. We run it against the do not call list to make sure you're not going to be calling people. I think that's up to a $16,000 fine per phone call, so that's real important. We will not put anyone on there that's on the do not call list. What else? So the best way to do this is really the whole package. Just look at 10,000 campaign. If you were to mail 10,000 letters, email around 3,500 people, get about 1,000 phone numbers on the 10,000 mail campaign, we get about 10% available phones not on the do not call list. It's just over $1 a piece. It's $1.08 a piece. So, you spend 10 grand on 10,000 mailers, we're going to get anywhere from, 50 to 150 leads between the direct mail, the email, and then the phone numbers. And, depending on, your brand and your sales staff and how they treat these leads, I mean, the conversion's great. They have good credit. They're in your dealership to buy a new car. Their leases do. I mean, they're not coming to pick up their free floating Coleman flashlight like all the junk mail that was done. I did millions of them in the 80s and 90s. All the free gifts, scratch off this, see if your key starts the car, all that crazy stuff. These are people ready to buy. You can do a free gift, and it'll help the response, but you don't really have to. These people are interested. So anyway.
Hey Jeff, got some people asking, what the timeline is. Can you make my my phones in my location blow up with lease expirations before the end of January and increase my new car sales, or is it going to be into February before I get something rolling?
Somebody called me today and said, give me the numbers, here's the letter I want to use. I mean, I could print and mail something in a week, and it would be out for that last week of January, so we could have a strong finish of January, those last 5 days. The email addresses, because of the long process of the opt-out and the matching, it takes me like 2 weeks right now to get email addresses back by the time I'm done scrubbing the list, sending my opt-out email. So the mail piece is actually hitting before the emails go out. So our thing is mail first class. We can mail it in a week and it'll get there in 3 days. So we could definitely have something out for the last week of January on the mail side. The emails might be going out, well, they probably go out the last week of January, and as soon as we get the data, we can send the email and get a few email respondents, and then we'd give you the list with the phone numbers. And the key is, hey, after you mail and email these people, hand these phone numbers to your sales team and get them to start calling. Lindsay Honda in Columbus, Ohio told me a few months back that he goes, Jeff, I just did 7,000 mailers. I think we sold 12 cars, but I handed the 700 phone numbers to my top salesperson. He goes, this lady sells 30 cars a month. I'm going to sell more cars on the darn phone numbers than I did off the mailer. So is there any way you can give me more phone numbers, And that was on a 700 phone number list. So if you get a good salesperson that's not scared of the phone, you call these people, hey, I see you have a $400 lease payment and it's coming due next month. Have you thought about, a new Mercedes? And they're very receptive to talk to. They know their lease is coming due, so it's not like cold calling because they're in the market for a car and they'll talk to you. So phone campaign's crucial to making this thing work long term. If the mailer goes out and bombs and 10,000 mailers, you only get 25 or 30 phone calls. Hey, you've got all these phone numbers and emails to make up for maybe a lack of response on the mail campaign. So it's crucial to do the whole thing, I think.
So next steps is to send Jeff an email at jeffbush@overflowworks.com, and that'll be the fastest way. If you call in and get a busy signal or get voicemail, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Jeff, anything specifically on the sample mailers and counts for their area when they call or email you?
Well, one thing to think about, let's say let's say your normal market is like a 10-mile radius around your dealership, and that's where you normally mail and advertise. Just keep in mind, for every 1,000,000 people in population, I might only have a couple thousand leases coming due. This list is very small and targeted, so I would encourage you to do a little bit bigger radius than what you're used to. Because it's a targeted list and you have a real strong offer, we think people will drive a little further to get out of their lease early. So if you normally do a 10-mile radius, you might try 20. I mean, obviously depending on what city and market area you're in. So give us an idea of what you want to look at. Send us an email with your zip code and we'll run 10, 20, 50-mile radius around your store and show you how many leases are expiring in your market area. That's the first step, to just look at how much data we have, and then we can send you some mail pieces that we've had success with, and try to use something that's already working out there and just tailor it to your store, your logos, brands, whatever. So that's the main thing, is just give us the market area, let us run the numbers, and we'll get some numbers to you and some letters and see if we can try this out for you.
Great. Well, we've got this bonus data that you've put together, Jeff, and for those people that need to get going, by all means, we can have them go, and we are recording this presentation. We can send you a recorded copy of it. But talk about why you wanted to add this bonus material after we scheduled the 30-minute webinar, because this is important information, and I think that we can cover it in about 9-10 minutes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we'll get through it quick.
Great. Let's start with the high rate data.
Yeah, so, years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, I designed the direct mail program for CPS, Consumer Portfolio Services. They're a big lender that now sells direct mail themselves. And I was doing bankruptcy mailers for years, millions of bankruptcy mailers for dealers around the country. Always a great response, huge gross profits on those used cars, and we're still doing that. Now CPS is a competitor to me. I built their whole mail program back 10 years ago, and some of you probably use them for mail and for lending subprime. But what we've been doing, Dave, is targeting a real specific list for used cars. And what I'm looking at is, let's say somebody had a bankruptcy 3-4 years ago, and typically right after their bankruptcy, they run out and buy a car. And they typically get like an 18% or a 21% interest rate, and they're kind of driving a cheaper used car. A lot of those people, after 3-4 years goes by, their credit score goes up as long as they stay clean after their bankruptcy, and they get into a position where they have, a break even, or they have some equity in the car. So I've been mailing people with bankruptcies that have really high interest rates on their car loans, but they have a credit score, 600, 620, 640 or higher. A lot of these people don't know, 2-3 years after their bankruptcy, Toyota Motor Credit will buy these people at 2.9% interest rate. So I'm having a lot of success mailing bankruptcies with a credit score, good auto loan history. I make sure that they didn't just buy a car. They've got 13 to like maybe 36 months left on the term of their auto loan, so they're in an equity position. So I'm having a lot of success with some used car mailers. Used car mailers get double the response of new cars, just because typically if you're marketing subprime credit, they respond better to mail. New cars, subprime used cars, I mean, they're making, $5,000-$6,000 a car versus making $1,200 or $2,500 on a new car. So it's more profitable, but dealers have to have a balance of selling both and making factory happy, sell enough new cars. But these used car mailers actually make more money, so I love doing them for dealers. If you're a luxury store, you might want to target people paying $400, $500, $600 a month on their car. They're halfway through their term. They've got X credit score. So, Dodge of Vacaville up in small town up near Sacramento, California. That guy spent $100,000 with me last year on this particular mailer. I mean, we just mail people that have 550 to 650 credit scores, that have 1 to 36 months left on their auto loan. They've reestablished their credit a little bit. You can probably offer them a better rate and put them in a lot better car for the same payment they're paying now. So that's kind of the whole play on this mailer. Low rate, get a nicer car with a warranty, no repair bills. It's kind of the thought. So we've had a lot of success on this used car mailer, so I just wanted to show it. A couple more quick mailers I think that we had in there.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep of Vacaville, if you will, and then we'll go into the next one here.
Somebody asked a question about manufacturer standards for the ad, and I think what they're maybe referencing is co-op. So let's see, my Hyundai dealers, Volkswagen, Dodge dealers, I think Ford might even, or Lincoln was getting co-op. So we can send these letters over to the manufacturer and have them sign them off for co-op, and you can get them paid for through your co-op fund if you have co-op. We're familiar with that. You might have to give us the email address for your local office that approves these mailers, but we do that all the time. So, you know, this guy's using his co-op money to pay for all the mail, whatever.
Great. How about the BK letter, Jeff? You've got a really good BK letter that's generating a lot of response for Lithia, Nissan, and Fresno. What's going on with that?
So again, we're targeting not just bankruptcy mailers. I mean, I do bankruptcy mailers, you know, the day after the bankruptcy discharges, we mail them a letter, or 3 months before it discharges, and that's a real successful direct mail campaign, but there's only a few hundred records in your market area to mail to. So you run out of data, you're only going to sell a few cars a month off those small bankruptcy mailers. So what I've been doing is going into the credit bureau and looking at people that had a bankruptcy discharge, you know, 1 month ago to 4 years ago, make sure they have a decent credit score, they paid their auto loan on time, and now that 2-3 years has gone by after the bankruptcy, you can put them in traditional financing from the factory and just put them in a lot nicer car for the same payment they're paying now. So again, this is a letter that goes out to you know, people that had a bankruptcy but improved their credit score, rebuilt their credit. Now they can get into a lot nicer car for the same payment, lower rate. And this is a little snap-pack black and white mailer, no color, no cars, just more used car, more about the financing, obviously, than the car.
Great. I'm going to bring up the slide here that just breaks down the financial numbers on the BK letter.
Yeah, so I did this mailer. You know, bankruptcy customers take advantage of 0 down and 2.9% APR. Dealers are death. Why? But if their bankruptcy is 2 or 3 years old and they've got a 640, 680, some of these people are 750 credit scores, you can get them some pretty aggressive financing, a low rate, no money down. And then I show them, hey, if you take out an auto loan for $10,000, look at this $151 a month payment. And I think I built that payment schedule after 72 months, so it's pretty aggressive. We could tone this down a little bit, but this works. No money down, 2.9%. Look at these attractive car payments. These people are paying, you know, $600 a month for a, you know, $15,000 car loan. If you show them these numbers, it gets them in the store. You work with them, you'll sell some cars and make some good grosses, and it's been successful.
Great. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for your education and your expertise and for sharing these great case studies. Just a quick recap, Jeff, on what next steps are and what you can give these potential attendees that are listening in right now or watching this webinar on more information to get things started in their particular market area.
So email or call us, and we'll run some counts on whatever you're interested in. You want to look at leases expiring, bankruptcies. You want to look at, you know, year, make, model data. You know, we can put some counts together and show you some successful letters and just get it in front of you. And I mean, if we could get, you know, anybody wants to have a strong last week of January, if we put an order in this week, I can mail next week and get it in the homes, and you can try this thing out and take it for a test drive.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for participating and sticking around for the extra few minutes of presentation on the used car marketing, and we look forward to talking to each and every one of you soon. Have a great day, everybody.